My guy BWP right here. Right? In the red hat. A hot and sunny summer day here at Red Bull Arena as New York Red Bulls 2 look to continue their winning ways at home and close out the slate of the season at this stadium before they open Montclair State University, and they do it in hosting FC Cincinnati, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference here on ESPN+. Welcome, everybody. New York Red Bulls 2 at 4-2-5, hosting FC Cincinnati at 6-3-2. David Goss and Heath Pierce alongside you for this one. Heath, I mentioned it, Red Bulls 2, big win in their last home game, 4-0-1 at home, a 4-1 win against Indy. Looking to continue that here today.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to build off that success. Obviously, they had a little bit of luck go their way, but they did put a pretty complete performance together, especially in the second half last match, and they'll be looking to carrying that today.
On the flip side for FC Cincinnati, they will look to play today through their star player, Emmanuel Ledesma, as they've had a big week. They lost to Louisville last weekend, but a huge announcement in moving to Major League Soccer on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, look, this guy can play anywhere in the attacking line. He's good on set pieces, great left foot, and is arguably the best player in USL right now.
And then you flip the script, and he is going to try and score against Scott Levine, making his professional soccer debut in place of Evan Loro today. Heath, how does he try and handle this big moment?
You just step up. He's been waiting for this moment, but I think right off the start, he needs to make sure that he's communicating well and staying active. If there's long stretches in the game where he's not getting action, communicating with that back line, making sure he's staying involved and staying active.
These are two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference fighting to move up the table. New York Red Bulls 2 could move into a tie for second place with a win. But Heath, I mentioned it, announcing this week for FC Cincinnati after a big loss that they will move to MLS next year. How do those two moments now come together in this game?
Well, I think in a lot of ways that big announcement has sort of helped that loss to their rival Louisville disappear. So it's allowed them to kind of have a celebratory moment, but turn their focus with a clean slate onto this match here at Red Bull Arena.
Well, Alan Koch has made big changes to the lineup. We'll check that out in just a minute here on ESPN+.
With MSG Go, the game goes where you go. So you can watch live Red Bulls games anywhere you want. It's free and easy because if you get MSG, you get MSG Go. Watch your favorite team wherever you are with MSG Go, presented by Lexus. Download it for free where you get your apps.
One of the nation's leading heart programs. A shared sense of compassion, innovation, and expertise. Perfectly orchestrated so your world never misses a beat. Hackensack Meridian Health, life years ahead.
The fans are here and ready to go for this one as New York Red Bulls 2 hosts FC Cincinnati. It's been one of the best rivalries here in USL in their time in the league. Let's take a look at the starting lineups. Massive changes for both teams. On one side for FC Cincinnati, a loss to Louisville, as we mentioned, and for the second time in 3 weeks. Alan Koch, big changes to his team. He brings Blake Smith into the lineup. He drops his captain, Kenny Walker, in central midfield, as well as Danny Koenig up top, so Emery Welshman will start alongside Ledesma. And on the flip side for New York, a number of players on the bench or in the first team for New York Red Bulls in MLS action this weekend. So Wahab Akwi gets his first professional start here at center back. Brian White up top, flanked by Armando Moreno and Jared Stroud for this team. And you look at the man who put it all together, Coach John Wolyniec. He's got his team going in the right direction at home. They've put up 4 goals or more in 3 of their 5 home games. They've been very clean here at home in getting the results. And today he faces off on the flip side against Alan Koch, who's had an eventful week. He lost a big game, found out his team's going to Major League Soccer next year, and he'll be the man in charge. He's got about 9 months to figure that out, but he's also got to keep this team focused, and this now becomes a big test for him.
Absolutely, and you know, this is a road match for them. He's made some changes over the last 2 matches. So you go 2 matches back against Charlotte. They lose, make some changes there. Then last match, they lose, they make some more changes. So he's still tinkering with this lineup, but it shows you the depth and the trust that he has in his team.
You look at our 4 referees for this one. Izmir Pekmic in the center circle, Tom Feliz and Zeno Cho are his 2 assistants, and Luis Arroyo, our 4th official for the game here today. For New York Red Bulls 2, this has been a very successful matchup for them. They are 3-1 all time against FC Cincinnati, 2-0 at home against this FC Cincinnati squad. But Heath, we've talked about this the last few weeks with Nashville, with Indy against New York Red Bulls 2. Once again, an extremely veteran and experienced squad. A lot of players, big-time players with international experience, top-level experience in their prime here, trying to get this win on the road.
Absolutely. They've done a great job of plucking players from around some of the leagues here in North America, and then obviously the coach bringing in players that he's known from his time coaching before he started coaching Cincinnati. So I think there's a lot of depth in the squad, a lot of experience in the squad, and that's what you need. And they're currently sitting second place in the East, and I think that's a comfortable position, but obviously their rivals in first place right now, Louisville, that's who they're going after, and that's who they got their focus on. And that starts with them playing well today, and hopefully them leaving, at least for themselves, leaving with 3 points.
I mentioned it in the open as Red Bulls 2 get us kicked off. FC Cincinnati, set second place on 20 points. New York Red Bulls 2, 6th place on 17 points. 1 game played difference between the two, so New York Red Bulls 2 would move into a tie for second with the win here, and FC Cincinnati would continue to put pressure on Louisville at the top of the table with a win in this one. First matchup of the season between these 2 teams here at Red Bull Arena. It'll be the last game of the year that the Red Bulls 2 will play here at RBA. They'll be moving to their permanent home, Montclair State University Soccer Park, next week, Friday night, June 9th. That's where they will play the rest of the season. Heath, for Red Bulls 2, you look at this team, and I mentioned 4 changes for them. 3 changes on the back line, a new goalkeeper in Scott Levine, his first career professional start. Armando Moreno steps into the starting lineup as well, out on the wing. How does this Red Bulls 2 team that finally got back to winning ways last week continue on with so many changes?
Well, I think that's going to be, in a lot of ways, aside from what we spoke about previously with Tenari needing to lead this team, so he's going to have to continue to lead this team today like he did last week. But then you're looking at Levine, you're looking at Akwi, to be able to step their game up. And that's just not about doing your job. They're in very vital positions up the spine, so it's about leading as well, being vocal, organizing your team, and showing that you being on the field is making your team better instead of making them worse.
Early corner kick here for FC Cincinnati, floated to the far post. It's knocked down and cleared away by Stauffer. Cincinnati trying to get a second chance at it, and a free kick called in a dangerous area now for FCC. So this will be a great early look for the away squad. A number of dangerous players in this team that can take a set piece. We talked about Ledesma already, but Corbin Bone, or Mac Herman Trophy winner in this midfield, who's been a big-time player for this team as well. They take it quickly. But our head official blowing the whistle. So now this New York backline and brand new goalkeeper have some early work to do here. It looks like it'll be Ledesma to take. Body's in the box for him to aim for. You see the size of the center back force. Lasso all the way up the field. Left-footed service floated to the far post. Lasso knocks it down, but straight into the feet of Caceres. Christian Caceres laying that ball back. He's a player that you've been really excited to see over the last few weeks. His poise on the ball, ability to knock it around, has been a big piece for New York. As now they push forward. Moreno can't get a touch on that one.
Yeah, he's a guy that's comfortable on the ball, and I like that. And those are the types of things as he gets older, his decision-making will become more consistent. It'll be better. But having that natural confidence on that ball, that calm and that poise, is still tough to find within the game, especially here in North America. And so having a guy like that at 18 years old, comfortable on the ball, comfortable keeping the ball at his feet, controlling the flow of the game, I think is hugely important for this entire organization to have a guy like that within it.
Cyrus just 18 years old. Lahoud, that quick touch. Turnover in a dangerous area there by Bone. And now New York going the other way. Tenari has it knocked off his foot. New York keeps possession. That one behind Moreno, and now Justin Hoyt. Trinidad and Tobago international. Starting that right back. When healthy, since he's come into this Cincinnati squad 2 years ago. Long touch there by Bone. Turned over in midfield once again. Lahoud and Ryan Ritchie sitting in that central midfield together. Lahoud getting back into the starting lineup after getting dropped, as Heath mentioned, after the Charlotte game. And Heath, those two players played in Miami for 2 years together in central midfield. So although they're both new to the club, good familiarity in that partnership.
Absolutely. You want to bring guys in that you can automatically have that chemistry that you want, but also pure ability out of both of them. Even if they hadn't, they're just two of the better midfielders within the league. Even when they're able to rotate those squads, obviously these guys are still also in the Open Cup, so being able to rotate those squads and have quality players and depth of those players is extremely important.
We know how much the Open Cup means to FC Cincinnati after a run to the semifinals last year, falling to the New York Red Bulls in the semifinal at home. Cincinnati hosting Minnesota United on Wednesday. That'll be a huge one. Make sure to go and get your tickets if you're in the Cincinnati area. Slipped there at a dangerous moment from Barrett. And he's lucky to see that one float all the way through to Newton. We saw that Open Cup run last year really power that fan base, which is already was involved, to new heights, and their wins on national television against the Chicago Fire as well as against Columbus Crew SC were huge moments of the year. As Stroud breaks into the box, squares it from Moreno, who's got time and space, and rolls it in. New York Red Bulls 2 pull apart this back line. Jared Stroud gets an assist for the second week in a row, and Armando Moreno gets a goal for the second week in a row.
We've talked about this so many times before. This team's so quick to pounce on turnovers, high pressing, forcing a turnover, that cut across the box, that willingness to attack defenders, draws the goalkeeper out, and Armando Moreno finds that open gap and uses another one of his goal celebrations. I think he's got about 10 or 11 of those in his pocket, and just needs to keep scoring goals so he can use them all.
I mean, he stole half them from FIFA.
Oh, yeah.
The other ones, though, are fun to watch. Armando Moreno enjoying his time back with the club he grew up with. His 4th goal of the USL season, coming here in his 7th start of the year.
And for a guy like Armando Moreno, so much talent, but still looking to find his feet as a professional, right? Still looking to get those consistent runs of games and really build his confidence. And scoring an early goal like that, I think we're going to see a good performance from him for the rest of his time here on the pitch, just having that extra bit of confidence to say, I've scored my goal already today.
He left New York and joined Club Tijuana in 2014, made 4 Liga MX appearances over the course of his 3 years. Found some time on loan in the lower divisions as well as in Copa MX action. Deciding to come back to New Jersey, where he's from, to try and restart his career at the age of 22. And he has taken advantage of his opportunities with this Red Bulls 2 squad so far this year under Coach Wolenek.
No, I've been around Mondo plenty of times over the last years, and you look at a guy like that who's not even getting consistent starts right now with the USL team. It's a credit to him that when he is getting his opportunities, he wants to show himself. He's not hanging his head. You know, he's not getting down on himself. He's going out there and saying, okay, I just need to continue to prove myself, and that's what he's done so far today.
An opening here to cross. And Hoyt will go back to the feet of Barrett. Richie goes all the way back into his own defensive half. Richie Ryan wearing the captain's armband today in place of Kenny Walker in central midfield. One of the biggest name players in the lower divisions in the United States. Played for Ottawa, Jacksonville, as well as Miami, as we mentioned. So you come out here, Heath, and you're a New York team that likes to press high. You get an early goal against a really strong squad, the second best team in the East. As now FC Cincinnati goes long to that far side for Ledesma. Flag stays down. Ledesma curls the cross in, no one there. How does New York handle this now?
It's about staying compact, and the issue that they're going to run into, like we've already mentioned a few times today, is those changes in the back line as well as the goalkeeper, right? How quickly can they immerse themselves and lead this back line, making sure that their striker to their last line of defense is really compact, close together, knowing when they're going to press high up the field, knowing when there's moments saying, hey, we're a little bit winded, we're a little bit tired, we're a little bit spread out, so let's drop off and rebuild, make sure we get compact again. But it's about that movement as a unit at this point.
For that back line, Kevin Politz, who just cleared that ball out, he's the lone player that remains the same as Akwi turns it over. No foul called. New York's able to recover. Politz, this is only his 4th career professional soccer start, so he hasn't been consistent in the lineup. Homegrown player at Wake Forest. There isn't really anyone on that back line to lean on for these young players, but it's been the story over the last few years for Coach Wolenek's side more than once.
But that's where I think you start to see the advantages of a player like Caceres, who's so calm on the ball, that he's that guy that even when things get frantic, even when guys look around and say, hey, I'm not confident right now, or things aren't going our way, you find the ball at his feet, and he's going to have that natural ability to slow the game down, take a deep breath, look at everybody and say, hey, we got this. Let's get our composure back, and let's play the game let's play in the style of which we try to play every single game.
That emergency latch. If you pull that one, you get him the ball, then you don't have to worry about it. He's going to figure it out for you. He started out the year, Caceres, at that wide midfield position. But Coach Wolenek, once he saw him for a few weeks, moved him infield, as Alan Koch gives an applause there to Forrest Lasso on the switch of the field. Wahab Akwi getting his first start here in the United States at center back out of Accra, Ghana, just 21 years old. Made 60 appearances for Inter Allies FC over in Ghana. And he steps into a tough role here as he makes the interception. A very active first 15 minutes or so for the young Ghanaian. Caceres up the line for Tenari. Tenari tries to sneak that one behind the back line. Newton comes out and saves it at the feet of Barrett.
You know, when you look at Akwi now, with each touch he gets on the ball, each ball won, you're going to see him start to rise a little bit more, that confidence, you know, him become a little bit more calm. You can't really simulate game reps at any level. So the more he gets involved, the more action he has, whether those are one-on-one duels, whether those 50-50 ones, even headers, you start to sort of realize that the game is played the same way. The game just gets a little bit faster at each level that you play at.
To the feet of Hoyt now with a little bit of space. Drops it back. Long ball over the top, beautifully played. The offside flag goes up. That was Al-Badawi coming from that left midfield position across the field. Nazmi Al-Badawi had the goal of the week last week in USL. As we mentioned, an up and down few weeks for this FC Cincinnati team. A 4-1 loss to Charlotte, followed by a 4-1 win against North Carolina, followed by a loss at home to Louisville. But Al-Badawi with a screamer against North Carolina to give his team the lead. Cincinnati dropping deep defensively into a block now. New York pokes and prods a little. Tavera, the draft pick out of Akron, goes up the line for the goal scorer, Moreno. And Hoyt's there to make the defensive play and push it out. So Nico Tavera at left back here, 21 years old, rookie out of Akron University. And on the flip side, he's playing against Justin Hoyt, 33-year-old out of Arsenal, who played most of his career in the Premier League and has 18 caps at the full international level.
Yeah. Quite a big gap between them, but
quite an afternoon.
That's going to be what Tavera's challenge is to make him uncomfortable. Be that second runner, overlapping, pushing them back, and trying to keep Hoyt from getting into the attack at all.
It'll be Lima to take this corner. The left-footed service will be the outswinger. He puts it in, headed away by Lasso at the near post. Forrest Lasso, part of one of the best defenses in USL last year with the Charleston Battery, making the move to come play under Alan Koch this year. An experienced back line. Lahoud with the interception. Welshman heads it over. Al-Badawi back to the feet of Ryan. Cincinnati looking to break out here. 15 minutes played so far in this one. New York Red Bulls 2 leading 1-0. That long cross goes out. And we mentioned also, Heath, many changes for this FC Cincinnati team. They haven't found their feet perfectly yet. You don't expect them to dominate possession on the road. But now trailing 1-0, what do you expect to see from them over the closing half of this first period?
Well, I think, you want to just keep finding Al-Badawi the ball, Ledesma the ball in the attack. These are guys that will run at you. They're dangerous on the dribble. They're dangerous on the finish. And then beyond that, you're going to look to Mike Lahoud and Ryan Ritchie to be able to really control that midfield. Start to win that midfield battle, establish themselves. You're playing against two players in Lima and Caceres who are both very comfortable on the ball, but you want to disrupt that, show your experience, own that midfield space, and then slowly start to lean on them and open them up a little bit.
Lahoud's a player that you played with in your MLS career. What did you find about his game or having him as a teammate?
He was so powerful in all of his movements, so comfortable on the ball. He was the kind of guy that even if you put him...
White now forcing the turnover, but he'll go out for a goal kick.
Even if you put him at wide midfield or outside back, he could play the position. He had exceptional athletic abilities, calm on the ball, was inconsistent at times in terms of his ability to show up in big moments, but this is years ago. He's obviously developed into quite a player since then, was quite a player then as well, but a guy that's comfortable on the ball, can own that midfield space, real competitive player, likes to cut out passing lanes, has a big engine, so has a huge range of tools and skills to rely on in the midfield position.
What a huge pickup by FC Cincinnati. They already had a robust midfield, but Lahoud at 31 years old out of Sierra Leone, raised here in the U.S. in Virginia, was incredibly successful with Miami and NASL. And as we mentioned, played in MLS for the Philadelphia Union for a couple of years, and alongside Heath Pierce at Chivas USA, where he started 50 games. Down the line here for Stroud, his ball in, and Moreno's header goes just over the crossbar, but that right side right now for New York has been lethal against FC Cincinnati.
And that's just a fantastic ball from Stroud there and a willingness from Moreno to get into the box. First keeping that in, and then a great run, diagonal, pulling Richie Ryan out of position, forcing that midfielder out of that space to track him diagonally. He's never a comfortable place for a midfielder, and it's a great ball to Moreno, and should have done better with it.
Tavera deemed not to use his hand there to intercept that one. Lucas Stauffer, who was signed midway through the start of the season for New York, playing out there at right back. This, his third start of the season. He was drafted this year by Vancouver out of Creighton University. Wasn't able to stick on that roster. New York saw the opportunity to add another talented young player to test out. We've seen him link up with Stroud now a few times on that right side.
When you talk about that young, youthful energy of some of these players, and you look at against the experience, I remember towards at least the end of my career, you get some of these young guys that would just, you know, if you watched it.
Bad turnover here. Al-Badawi looking to push the attack the other way. Ledesma here gets closed down, and he turns it over.
And when you watch it, when you look at it on paper and video, you say, hey, you are out of position all the time because you run so much, run less. But when you're playing against experienced players, they don't want to chase you everywhere. I remember not wanting to chase these young guys because they run everywhere. They're so full of energy. And you look at things like that when you're talking about who's going to win this midfield battle, and you see a Stroud running diagonally and players overlapping. You know, you have a guy with as much experience as Richie Ryan. He doesn't want to chase him. He don't want to fall. I mean, he has to because that's his job. But you start to see where the youth gets the advantage over the experience, and now it's up to that midfield when they do win the ball on the Cincinnati side to say this is where experience wins the midfield against the youth.
And one of the things we saw last week, an Indy 11 team similarly built to this FC Cincinnati team, a lot of experienced players, a lot of full internationals. Two mental mistakes from Indy 11 turned that game over. New York never really made that big mistake, and that's the one thing you always expect with this Red Bulls 2 team is they're going to be dogmatic and try and play out of a dangerous situation. They're going to turn off mentally at some point defensively and leave some wide open chances. And at home, at least, they haven't so far this year under Coach Wolyniec.
Yeah, we saw moments even last week where, you know, you do shut off for a minute. Fortunately, they were able to finish the match with a win, but they shut off for one moment. You do get punished. There are teams that are good enough. Cincinnati has plenty of experience and quality that if you do shut off, and that's a big challenge for Coach Wolyniec to say these guys have all the talent, right? They have all the potential, but now I need that consistency. And that's one of the things he said to us multiple times now, and it's a pretty common theme as these younger players try to transition into the highest levels, is that consistency. Yeah, I've seen what you can do in flashes, but can you do it for 90 minutes? If you do it for 89 and you shut off, is that a quality performance or is that not good enough?
Saris into the feet of Stroud, who's already got an assist today. The Colgate grads been dangerous so far. His former college teammate Ethan Cutler getting an MLS appearance once again later on today up in New England, where he'll be on the bench. They're signing his MLS deal. Hassan Endam and Evan Laurel will join him. So a number of New York Red Bulls 2 regulars getting opportunity at the MLS level as, of course, an international break. So you've got players like Michael Murillo and Fidel Escobar who are over getting ready for the World Cup. And you've also got Tyler Adams, who's going to get a chance to play once again for the U.S. national team, the first ever signing in New York Red Bulls 2 history. And he's just the perfect example of coming from a 9-year-old in the Red Bull Academy through the regional schools, the RDS, into USL and MLS, and now at the highest level you can be as an American.
Yeah, not only that, but a guy like that is missing, right, from the lineup. He's missing from the squad. And then you look to say, okay, do we have the depth? And now that you have a USL squad that's playing the same system, and I know we beat this a point to death, but but playing within the same type of system, the same philosophy, you're no longer saying, yeah, but in a bind like we're in this week, can I have a guy come in and sit on the bench? Can I have a guy fill into this lineup, and if I have to put him in, will he understand what we're doing here? And now you actually have a full philosophy from the top down or ground up. I say that every time because I can't tell you. I'm not sure which way it's built, but I'm assuming from the ground up. But he can step in and say, this guy knows what we're doing. He might not quite be at this level week in and week out to play in the first team, but if I bring him in and I say, hey, you're playing in this position, I don't have to explain to him the tactics. I don't have to explain to him why we do certain things. He just steps in and does it because that's what they're playing on this team as well.
It would be a great opportunity. Hassan Endam, he's got every bit of talent. He has slowly become more consistent for Coach Wolinek's New York Red Bulls 2 team. Evan Loro, the backup goalkeeper today, is Ryan Mira. A Stroud shot goes long. Ryan Mira, USL Cup winner with Red Bulls 2, sat behind the Ironman in Luis Robles, but this team gave him an opportunity to continue to get better, get minutes, stay sharp, and he stepped in and played phenomenally at the MLS level. In this game for Red Bulls 2, Matt Frank, an academy player on loan, the backup goalkeeper to Scott Levine. Jordan Balon, another academy player on the bench with Echeverria. John Murphy, the final academy player in this game. Jose Aguinaga, Tom Barlow, and then Ben Mines is on the bench. A little bit of an injury, so he doesn't get the start, but he will most likely see some minutes off the bench. On the flip side, an ability to change the game and a ton of experience on the bench for Coach Alan Koch. He's got Danny Koenig, one of the best goal scorers over the last 3 years in USL. Kenny Walker and Jimmy McLaughlin, 2 experienced players. Matt Boehner and Sam DeVitt, as well as Will Seymour. Spencer Ritchie, the backup goalkeeper for FC Cincinnati. As New York, it looks like it's going to get a free kick here. The foul going against Ledesma. New York leading through their early goal. Just a conversation here between Pekmich and Ledesma. Ismar Pekmich made a pretty good interception on an FC Cincinnati through ball that looked like it was going to be a dangerous chance. And you always hear in your head, oh, referee's part of the field, but it still sucks every time it happens. Corner taken short. New York goes all the way back to De Vera. De Vera floats one in right on the hands of Newton, and the goalkeeper takes it easily. Evan Newton here, his 8th start in the 12th game of the season. The 30-year-old out of Virginia Beach. Former USU 17 international. Trying to step in and fill in for Mitch Hildebrandt, one of the stars of the team in their first 2 years. Moved on to Atlanta United this offseason. Stauffer with the through ball deflected away. He wins it back. New York playing confidently here, 25 minutes in with a 1-0 lead. Lahoud slide tackle, and Hoyt's able to keep it in, but it'll go back to the feet of Levine. Stauffer floats this one in, right on the hands of the goalie. Select is the official soccer ball of the USL. For the latest Select products and special offers, please visit www.selectsportsamerica.com. Receive free shipping on orders over $50. You can also go to uslsoccer.com to get the player's perspective of all the action around the USL every Wednesday as Tampa Bay Rowdies' Jack Blaze hosts The Blakedown on the USL YouTube channel. FC Cincinnati, an eventful week, as we mentioned, announcing that 2019 the squad will move to Major League Soccer. He's not the conventional movement of the soccer world, but you've been around teams that have been promoted or relegated, moved around. Are these guys thinking about what that could mean? Does it change the way you play in that you feel like you have to prove yourself?
Well, I think one of the hardest things for a lot of these guys, and they're all asking the same question, is am I part of the plans, right? Am I part of these plans? And I think they've now got this window to really look at themselves and look at their development, and the club gets a chance to say, how will this player develop? What age is he? Does he fit within the long-term plan? And then I think if they're honest with these players will get a solid window to be able to prove themselves and show that they can make that next step as well.
Andrew Tenari going down with an injury behind the ball. Wearing the captain's armband today would be a huge loss for this New York Red Bulls team. Tenari, just 22 years old, had 2 goals and 3 assists last year, 3 goals and 1 assist. But he's the guy we've always talked about that makes this team tick. He gets on the ball, he floats off that wing or starts in central midfield. He creates, he holds possession, he moves this team from wing to wing. This would be a huge loss for New York Red Bulls too.
Absolutely. I think, he, like you said, he is that guy that can, especially in that midfield, pull players in and out, always playing off the shoulder of midfielders and defenders inside of those pockets and really continuing to step up his game, moving into that 10 position. Obviously played primarily in that 8 position or that two-way midfielder, and now taking on more of that number 10 role. But just like we talked about last week, that role requires so much more than a traditional number 10 here within the style of play of the Red Bulls too. You have to be able to play defense. You have to be one of the first lines of pressure. You have to be committed. So I think losing him would be a huge loss for the team today.
Jose Aguinaga would be the logical like-for-like change on the bench. He's warming up right now. You also see Steven Echeverria warming up, who's a true number 6. So he could bring Echeverria in and maybe push Casares a little bit higher, play really with 3 more defensive-minded players because the team already has a 1-0 lead. What would you, if he can't go on, rather see?
I'd like to see Casares move into that position. We've talked about certain parts of his game being good but needing more polish, right? Some of that is his long-range passing. Some of that is that final ball. We've seen him be able to slot those 30, 40-yard balls from a deeper position, but now playing into those pockets more with his back to the game. A lot of times in that 8 or that 6 position, you're facing the field more often. You have a little more time on the ball, but when you're in those pockets, knowing when you can turn, always knowing what's over your shoulder, it'll be interesting to see if he does step into that position, how he handles that move.
So Tenari still got the armband on. We'll see if he's able to continue. No sub being called over. About 15 minutes left to play here in the first half. Armando Moreno with the lone goal so far. The early 7th minute strike to give New York the lead. You can hear FC Cincinnati supporters across the way from us. They've had a lot to celebrate over the last year or so. Over 17,000 fans a game at Nippert Stadium, filling the Bailey to be one of the most impressive supporter sections basically on the continent. And now a chance to see a new stadium come up in a couple of years and see their team continue to compete at the highest levels they can.
And seeing that traveling support is really cool. I think that's one of the emerging things we're seeing when you live in such a large country or continent like we're seeing teams between the U.S. and Canada. It's not always easy to get around. It's not like it was when, I played in Denmark, for example, and it's a small country, and you're talking about 3.5, maybe 4 hours, and only one of our trips per year was a flight. Everything else was on a bus or in Germany, for example, you're traveling a lot on trains or buses a short distance. It's a little bit bigger, but we're talking about a vast amount of ground you have to cover, and to see these fans willing to commit to that on the weekends or on the weeks around games that they find important is really cool to see.
The other thing you see, and I think you saw this for the first time really with maybe Seattle and Portland, is every expat now wants to go see the team, and FC Cincinnati now a rallying point for their city. You got a lot of people in New York City area who are from these different cities, and when the team comes, they get excited. They want to go out. They want to represent their colors. And it's going to be cool to see FC Cincinnati now represent that region. And when they travel over the next year and 2 and going into MLS, people have a chance to go see their home team play.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I didn't really think about till I got to experience it almost 3 years ago when Columbus was hosting MLS Cup. I remember flying from New York to Columbus and being on a flight
with all Crew SC
fans as well as Portland Timbers fans. Yeah. And I remember just seeing I was sitting next to somebody that lived in New York City that was a Portland Timbers fan, and it's a great source of pride, of kind of a homecoming, to have a sport that you love, have a team within your community or your kind of greater area for you to kind of, when they come to town or be part of it, and it's an amazing thing to see.
Yeah, the sport and the passion for the sport, the organized passion for the sport, Definitely changing over the last few years here in the U.S., of course. No World Cup to support for the U.S. national team, but still a big tournament coming up. New York Red Bulls will have a couple players there. It should be a once-in-a-lifetime. It will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience, unless you do it twice or 3 times. Or you're like DeMarcus Beasley and you just do one every couple of years. White now forcing a turnover. Charging into the box. He's got 2 players to pull it back for. It's for Tenari, whose right-footed shot wasn't on frame. But Tenari goes down with the injury, able to continue, and missing the second-best chance of the half for New York.
Yeah, and we're seeing this pressing system again, forcing turnovers, never allowing Cincinnati to really settle in. And you look here, another turnover in behind the back line. Cuts it back well, and Tenari does such a great job to hesitate that shot that he feels is going to be blocked, letting it open up his hip a little bit. Ends up being a little bit too much and misses the frame. But when you look at things now after 33 minutes, Cincinnati hasn't really settled into the game, right? They haven't really found their rhythm. They haven't really established much possession, or we haven't really seen their style of play come to life much. But the same could also be said of the Red Bulls too. The difference is the Red Bulls too are very comfortable not having the ball because they're just as happy to press you up the field and force you to put them in dangerous attacking positions through turnovers.
Stauffer into the feet of Tenari. Stroud now with the cross. Knocked away at the top of the box. Lima gets a touch to it. Al-Badawi not able to clear, and Casares on the ball. Lima with the chance to pick his head up. Difficult ball into the feet of Stroud. Stauffer continuing to press now. He'll get to this one. He lines up Blake Smith. Lucas Stauffer, the former futsal international, gets to the end line, and his fullback teammate Devera can't finish. Lucas Stauffer lining that one up, makes the play. And Heath, as a former left back, you know, those chances don't come often.
They don't come often, and I'm just happy that I'm not Blake Smith in the corner there having to go one-on-one with Stauffer, but does a great job to get around them. And then Devera, obviously, the biggest problem when those chances don't come often is you don't get to practice them very often. So, you know, you can do it on the training pitch, but that real-time reaction and you having to tell yourself, stay over the ball, put it on frame, get yourself a chance, seems easy, but I can tell you, having only scored maybe 5 or 6 goals in my entire career and had plenty of chances to score goals, it's, you know, it's something that you've got to train and work on regularly.
Stroud trying to put it past Smith. What's the best goal you ever scored? Is there like one that's the clear?
I think one that was, I feel like the biggest moment for me was, you know, we went down 2-0 actually here in Red Bull Arena against Portland Timbers early on, and we kind of clawed our way back into the game, and somewhere in between the 80th and the 90th, you know, got a ball wide, kind of a rebound, missed a clearance, and they whipped it back in and scored off the match winner off a header. And so obviously the header, you know, in real time it felt like I was jumping through the roof, but we got up for a header, snapped
Air
it down.
Jordan Space Jam.
Exactly. I was dunking it, but you know, put it on frame, scored, was the match winner, and that one felt like the biggest pivotal moment. But I had an awkward celebration, didn't know what to do. It's kind of, you just started running to the corner. Fortunately, my teammates that were warming up for the final minutes of the game were still over there, so they were able to save me from making myself look stupid by just being able to meet it. Yeah, I just went and hugged them, and then that ended it. So
otherwise you end up like John Anthony Brooks, who literally just was like, I'm going to go to sleep now.
Yeah.
In the World Cup.
Exactly. Like you don't know what to do when you're a defender. I even saw in a goal that Alexi Lawless had scored against Argentina recently, and he just was running with his arms straight up in the air, and I'm just like, maybe that was the goal celebration of the time. Yeah. But when you're a defender, you just, you know, unless you're a guy that's scoring regularly as a defender, you just don't know what to do.
This ball goes wide for Devera. He had his chance at glory earlier. Continuing to push forward. New York turning the screws here in the middle of the first half. Tenari loses it to Smith. And now Orion trying to clear his team's lines. Ledesma up the field to the feet of Al-Badawi. Welshman has had a quiet game so far. Plays it out into space. Smith's able to win that initial tackle, and then Casares steps forward. Space right now for Cincinnati to attack. They're going to tie this one up. Ledesma with the curled shot on the left foot. Vane makes his first save of the game. And now it looks like it's Jared Stroud, the one who's down behind the ball. So 2 injuries here in this first half. New York Red Bulls 2 leading 1-0. Heath, you never had a random Eric Lehigh moment where you just hit a great volley from 35 out in a second division Danish game that no one knows about?
It's funny because I'm thinking about it as if maybe that happened, but
yeah.
I'm sure if that happened, I wouldn't have
you
to
would
think
remember,
about it.
Yeah.
So many goals, so hard to remember it. But
you played with and a lot against a lot of great players. Who was the most dangerous goal scorer you ever played around?
Oh, I mean, at the international level?
Anything.
I mean, Messi, Aguero, Ronaldinho.
Those guys are good.
Yeah, those guys are good. But the best performance I had been around was Ronaldinho for sure on the day. He
Brazil?
You always hear about these people that are like, oh, they have so much fun when they play. He was actually laughing the entire game, and he was killing us. So, but just pure talent, unbelievable ability to see things on the field that I can't even see from standing up here looking down on the pitch. I always appreciated guys who really, really saw the game differently. And, those guys are in a very select group of quality players.
When you're a young player, especially for, these Red Bulls 2 players, and then you've got some young players in FC Cincinnati playing with more experienced players, how do you try and learn that? How do you, if you're in a camp with Clint Dempsey as a young kid, how do you try and get some of that from them?
You sort of watch the way they operate, right? And what you see in Clint Dempsey when he's in a match is no different than when he's in training. A lot of people think that people turn that on in a match, but he'll elbow you in the face in training too. He'll get into a scrap with you. And
Tenari clips this over the top for Moreno. Moreno now holds up looking for a teammate, and then his shot is blocked.
And it's not because he's malicious or he's just got that competitiveness that he'll do whatever it takes to win and get an edge on you. And I think when you're a young player, you have to be able to see those types of things. You have to be able to recognize certain developed traits. Obviously, part of that is going to be his character or his personality.
Early taken free kick here over the top. Al-Badawi can't keep that possession. Stauffer trying to dribble out of a dangerous spot, gets it to the feet of Lima. And finally Stroud plays it all the way up the field. Gorgeous touch there from Ledesma. It's 2 players sliding in against each other. Dangerous moment there. It'll be Cincinnati throw-in. You look at this team, you look at a guy like Emery Welshman, 25 years old, starting to come into his prime, flanked by a guy in Ledesma who's played in the Serie A, who's played in England, who's played in Argentina, and you think, oh, there's so much he can learn from him. That's what we always say, but I'm always interested, what does that actually mean? Is Ledesma explaining things that he sees? Is he going through tape and saying, hey, I saw you do this last week. What did you see? How do you do that? Or is it just trying to watch it and try to absorb?
Well, it's tough to say because every person on this pitch is going to be completely different in the way that they approach the game. You have certain players that watch the games leisurely. You have certain players that watch the games and follow their position. They follow what the player in there. If they're watching a Champions League game, what is their player doing? How do they move? What are the little details that make them better than that person that's watching them? And then you have some guys that typically like to watch the game from just a leisure standpoint and aren't into video and aren't into those types of things and just want to be on the field all day getting touches and learning from getting touches. And so every player is going to approach that completely different. So there's not a perfect system, but there is a mentorship thing, and there has to be also a willingness to say, what does that guy do that's better than me? Because if you look at Welshman and Ledesma, 2 very different players, but I think Ledesma has an ability to say, hey, if I'm in this space, you need to be getting into that space. And
this is how you read a good winger.
Yeah, these are the movements, that little tiny details that can take his talent or his potential and turn that into sort of potential realized, if that makes sense.
Welshman pushing that ball out wide for Smith. Emery Welshman, one of the former Whitecaps 2 players, that Alan Koch coached up north, that he's brought now to Cincinnati. Scored a number of goals for the Puerto Rico Islanders last year, as well as for Real Monarchs, who once again lead the Western Conference. De Vera puts that one out. Point now to throw it in. Not a lot of movement in front of Hoyt here in the final 3 or 4 minutes. It is 88 degrees and humid here at Red Bull Arena. Al-Badawi pushes it wide. Smith charging in, gets it to Lahoud. Lahoud brings it back to his right foot, and it's just wide of that near post. The best look of the game here in the closing minutes of the first half for FC Cincinnati.
You know, and they finally inched the ball forward, got enough numbers forward to hold possession there for a moment. Obviously doesn't lead to much, but again, getting Lahoud into the attack. Seeing Corbin Bone get into the attack, who was actually free on the back post in that opportunity where Lahoud decided to shoot. But getting more numbers forward, I think, is an important thing for Cincinnati.
The USL's official Twitter feed keeps you up to date with news, live game updates, and highlights from around the league 24/7. Follow at USL on Twitter, especially on game days like these. Weekends, we've got games all across the country. Outside of the foot, cross goes over the head there. Heath, if you're Alan Koch, you go into halftime trailing 1-0 the way this team has played. What do you think his message is going to be? What's his focus?
I mean, honestly, I think this game is still wide open. There's still plenty of opportunities for Cincinnati to settle in. If anything, I'm pushing higher up the pitch, sort of what they're doing now off the goal kick. The only danger that I've really seen from the Red Bulls 2 so far is that when they've gotten good at quick little movements in the pockets, finding those little spaces and getting those numbers forward, it's pulled Cincinnati into different spaces and pulled them out of their comfort zones. And a lot of that quick little movements made them uncomfortable. And that's the only real threat that I've seen the Red Bulls 2 have settled into or do more than once or twice. And so if I'm Cincinnati, I'm saying, hey, look, we're going into the second half. There's plenty of space for us. They're going to open up for us, but they have to be able to settle in at a certain point.
For New York Red Bulls 2, they have the early lead. Coming in to last week, they had drawn 5 straight games before they lost to Bethlehem. They hadn't led in a game for over a month. They went down 1-0 in the first half to Indy, came back with 4 goals in the final 20 or so minutes. So they've shown that they're more of a second half team offensively because players make mistakes, mentally break down with that press and energy throughout the game. They've had a solid first half here, though.
Absolutely, and I think in the second half we're going to see both these teams probably fatigue a little bit. It's hot, it's humid. But I would say in the last 5 minutes is the best 5 minutes I've seen from FC Cincinnati, so it's a positive, I think, ending to the first half for them, and it's going to be up to the Red Bulls 2 to be able to deal with that and deal with numbers forward in the second half.
Cincinnati ending on a high note here, looking for that goal to tie it up. Lahoud goes wide. Plenty of space here. Ledesma's shot is deflected, and it'll go wide for a corner kick. But as Heath said, offensively, this is the best that FC Cincinnati's played. They would love to end it with a goal. Go into the halftime locker room, tied 1-1. It'll be Ledesma to take his left-footed service. He's got Lasso and Welshman on the far post. Drilled into the middle of the 6, headed away by Acqui. Now Bone. And his second ball floated in will roll out. One of the big things we were looking at coming into this one would be the play of Wahab Acqui. Never played for New York before, a young 21-year-old on a new continent. He has looked very steady so far in this game.
Yeah, he's been tested a few times. The only glaring moment that I saw was a square pass out of the back under pressure. That was a little bit pacey and not the sharpest pass, but they survived out of that by, Stauffer just dribbling straight through that under pressure. But they got out of it alive. But overall, for a first half and a first start, it's been a strong look for him. He's now just got to look to build on that in the second half and say, I can take my game even a little bit better and really, really dominate that center of the pitch.
Al-Badawi and Smith Linking up, now Corbin Bone making the run down the line. He's got space to cut it back, and there's no one crashing on that far post. But Heath, over these last 5 minutes, Bone floating a little bit more to find the game. Al-Badawi starting to swap his position a little bit more. It felt like Cincinnati started out very positionally based. Ledesma hasn't really gone anywhere from this right side, but these other players are starting to interchange and find the game.
Well, I think Ledesma found himself a little isolated on the left side. Unless you have numbers in the box, a guy like him is not going to be as useful as he can be on that right side driving in. If he drives in and then you can get your Hoyt overlapping him on the right side and really creating space, I think you're going to have a much more dynamic sort of attack from that position than him sitting out on the left and having to find Welshman all alone as the lone striker up top. But I think it's also a matter of the Red Bulls, too, not keeping much possession over the last 5-10 minutes. You know, when you get into these long stretches where they're leaning on you a little bit, that's where you really do have to look for a Caceres that can slow the game down and say, hey, we need to keep the ball for a little bit. We can't just defend for these long stretches because you're allowing FC Cincinnati to get comfortable, and now they're getting their chances in front of goal.
Smith now charging forward from fullback. Caceres steps in and wins that tackle. He's going to immediately try and attack the other way. White's pass misplaced. Stroud keeps it in play. Lima back into the feet of White. We are deep into these 4 minutes of stoppage time now, the last few seconds of this first half. New York Red Bulls, too, taking the air out of the ball a little bit. Barrett's able to win that one in front of Tenari. Akwi, I don't know if it was purposeful. Excuse me, it's off the hand. I was going to say great touch with the high foot, but it was the opposite.
And you look at the Red Bulls, too, there, and they slow the game down a little bit, but then they make a very low percentage attempt to try to attack the ball forward. And those are the moments you have to be able to put your foot on it, draw it back, and have a real possession with the purpose. If they're going to let you keep the ball for a while, take that moment and then know when it is that you want to draw those players out and turn it into an attack.
Caceres goes by Ledesma and earns the free kick. The two South Americans going up against each other, and that'll be the final action of the first half. A 7th-minute goal by Armando Moreno, his 4th of the season, to move into a tie for second on this New York Red Bull 2 squad is the difference, as New York Red Bulls 2 lead 1-0. Now these two teams will have a chance to get some water and get some break and head into the halftime locker room. For Alan Koch, a few changes maybe to come here, as he's got big goal scorer and Danny Koenig on the bench and playmaker and Jimmy McLaughlin. That could change the game for him. And on the flip side, Coach Wolenek trying to figure out how to get his young and experienced backline and his rookie goalkeeper through this game and potentially a massive victory in the Eastern Conference here. The final game at Red Bull Arena of the season for New York Red Bulls 2. They lead FC Cincinnati 1-0 as we head into halftime here on ESPN+.
With MSG Go, the game goes where you go. So you can watch live Red Bulls games anywhere you want. It's free and easy because if you get MSG, you get MSG Go. Watch your favorite team wherever you are with MSG Go, presented by Lexus. Download it for free where you get your apps.
One of the nation's leading heart programs. A shared sense of compassion, innovation, and expertise. Perfectly orchestrated so your world never misses a beat. Hackensack Meridian Health. Life years ahead.
Welcome back to Red Bull Arena. David Goss and Heath Pierce here on ESPN Plus. FC Cincinnati, the newest squad in Major League Soccer this week, but they've still got a year left in USL action. The New York Red Bulls too, not making it easy on them. For Scott Levine, Heath, his first career professional start. It's been an easy first half. This backline's really reacted well to him.
Yeah, he's had to make a few saves. Nothing overly spectacular, but he's been there when the team needed him, coming off of his line when he's had to, and really been what seems to be a confident goalkeeper for his first start today.
He hasn't had too much to do, but that one dangerous shot there from Ledesma. He was the player we were really excited to watch in this game. And you mentioned it at the end of the first half, he just hasn't gotten enough touches to be dangerous.
I think when he's drifting out to that right side is where he's most comfortable. He's good also underneath the strikers. So as more attackers start to add into the attack and get joined in, it's going to be up to him to start to pull those strings a little bit. Seeing him and Corbin Bone, seeing Michael Hood get into the attack to support a very, very alone Emery Welshman so far in the first half, I think it's going to make the difference for them in the second.
We'll see what changes to come here in the second half for these two teams. For New York Red Bulls too, they stay home. A 3-game homestand ends next week, June 9th, 7 p.m. against the Charlotte Independents, the first game of the season at MSU Soccer Park. It's expanded to 5,000 capacity. A brand new stand goes up behind one of the goals. Brand new turf at a higher level. This team's very excited to get back to what will be their home for the rest of the season and going forward over the next few years. They are looking for a big win against the Charlotte Independents in that match as well. On the flip side for FC Cincinnati, Open Cup play Wednesday night, but they've still got 45 minutes left to focus on here at Red Bull Arena. We'll be back in just a moment with all your midweek USL action and second half action here on ESPN Plus.
Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. This week I've handpicked some of my favorite plays from the week. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Back across to lose. Iwolo, still loose, and how about?
This play from Iwolo starts here. You know, he wins the header, and that allows his striker to go through on goal. The commitment to win the header and then follow it through with the run and the support as well, because he could just stop. He could stop his run and expect the striker to score, but he follows it through. He doesn't take the best of first touches when it comes back to him, but he has the composure to take another touch and relax. So a cheeky double nutmeg to finish it off.
There, finds Perez. Perez with the back heel. It's there, and a goal! Joaquin Rivas!
This play is more about the assist. When he picks it up, it's very difficult because he has 2 defenders on him. He uses his awareness. His spatial awareness is fantastic. He tries to stay in the box as long as possible, and then the support run from Rivas is also tremendous. It looks an easy skill, but it's not. It's very difficult. And again, Rivas's finish on the weaker foot into the far corner. Again, it's a brilliant play.
Combine well with others. We saw him a few weeks ago with Fresno.
Oh, this is dangerous opportunity here. Strike, and we are equal.
This has to be one of my favourite plays from the week. When Lopez gets the better of his defender here, he sees the keeper coming out. His first touch actually takes him on a tight angle. And when you see this frame here, he knows he's got 3 defenders rushing back to goal. So that when he takes his strike, he knows that he has to put pace on it. Now, to put pace on it from that angle is a very difficult technique. I don't think if he had that moment again, he could do it any better. You know, it's a fantastic finish, perfect, with 3 defenders running back to goal. It has to be my favourite play of the week.
Mendez, good ball. Here's Zubak looking for number 3, and he scores!
The connected movement from Ethan Zubak and his fellow strike partner here is fantastic. You know, he comes to feet and he drags the defender with him, and then he uses his agility and his speed to get past the defender with just a simple movement, a simple step. Again, to have that partnership with your striker is something that's very strong, and it will hold him in good stead for the season. There's a reason why he's player of the week. Out of his 4 goals that he scored, that was my favourite, purely because of the movement and the tactical awareness from both of them.
When I saw Alex Mendez get the ball from an entry pass, I just knew I had to spin off, and when the ball came right to my feet on top of the box, I just decided to go for it and finish it.
I hope you've all enjoyed this week's episode of The Breakdown. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Welcome back to a steamy Red Bull Arena as we take a look at the week that was in USL. Michael Nanshoft with the pile driver. Heath, you may never have done it, but that's a pretty nice goal.
Fantastic hit there. Goalkeeper's blind just long enough. Hits it, clean stroke. Leaves the keeper with no chance.
TFC2 losing their coach this week in Laurent Goyette, heading back to Europe and losing a big game as well there. Ethan Zubak has been pouring in the goals for LA Galaxy 2 over the last few weeks. He and Efrain Alvarez, as well as Uli Yanez, the three-headed youth monster for the LA Galaxy 2 team. He gets player of the week.
Couple good finishes there. Comfortable in front of frame. Big body. You just see his confidence. Everything he's hitting is going in. Great balls to set him up, but quality week for him.
He ends up in the team of the week as player of the week alongside New York Red Bulls 2 starter Brian White today. Mo Chow playing out for Reno as a draft pick for San Jose Earthquakes. Up top with the game winner as well. You look at Pat McMahon and Nana Atakora along the back line. McMahon helping lead Louisville to that shutout win on the road against FC Cincinnati last week. And Junior Fleming, former New York Red Bull 2 star, getting 2 goals with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. You look at this matchup here, and it's what you'd expect. FC Cincinnati, slight more in possession. New York Red Bulls, the lone shot on goal is the goal, 6-4 in shots. But that just tells you, Heath, neither of these teams has been extremely goal dangerous in this one.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of action in the midfield. Obviously, Red Bulls 2 very comfortable not having possession, actually inviting other teams to have possession to make mistakes, especially when that possession's being had in their defensive third. And then on the flip side, FC Cincinnati finishing that half pretty strong, with possession, comfortable, having the ball with a purpose, starting to open that field up a little bit, I think is going to be a key to their second half.
These two teams, a lot more to come from them as we've seen in most Red Bulls 2 games. The goals have started to pour in the second half for FC Cincinnati. It's been the same as well over the last few weeks as they poured it on against North Carolina late just 2 weeks ago. So we expect fireworks coming up here from Red Bull Arena. David Goss and Heath Pierce will join you in just a moment on ESPN Plus with all your second half action.
With MSG Go, the game goes where you go. So you can watch live Red Bulls games anywhere you want. It's free and easy because if you get MSG, you get MSG Go. Watch your favorite team wherever you are with MSG Go, presented by Lexus. Download it for free where you get your apps.
One of the nation's leading heart programs. A shared sense of compassion, innovation, and expertise. Perfectly orchestrated so your world never misses a beat. Hackensack Meridian Health, life years ahead.
New York Red Bulls still leading 1-0 at home, looking for their 5th home win of the season. And Heath, they got it started early. Armando Moreno, his 4th goal of the season.
Yeah, and again, forcing that turnover, leaving those players with nothing but 50-50 looks. But again, a great little ball back there. 2 guys sitting on that back line or on that goal line. Moreno finds that open slot, slots it home.
New York Red Bulls, too, were dangerous throughout the beginning of the first half, and a lot of it coming down that right wing. Jared Stroud almost setting up Moreno again.
Lots of action there, but great run from Moreno to get in front of that defender. Just needs to keep that on frame, but
Brian White, active first half, helped set up the goal and almost set up Tenari here.
And I love the way Tenari hesitates to get that shot off, knowing that his shot's going to get blocked. Kind of gets stuck between two minds between that pass and that first touch finish. But again here, that willingness, great dribbling chance. And then I feel for De Vera as a former outside back. You don't get those chances often, but great ability to get behind the defender one-on-one. Cuts it back to that right spot, knowing where that ball needs to be. Doesn't put it on frame.
You don't feel for Lucas Stauffer, the Meg, then the Meg on the pass. He's looking for the highlight reel assist. He doesn't get it. Ledesma hasn't gotten the looks we'd want. One good shot, one block shot, but that just shows you how the flow of this game has gone so far. New York Red Bulls too looking to move to 5-0-1 at home as they close out their Red Bull Arena homestand of the season. And as you see there, they move back to Montclair State University Soccer Park on June 9th. It's an awesome experience. You get to sit right up against the field, see some young players who could be the next Tyler Adams, the next Florian Below, or Aaron Long face off against some of the best players on the continent. And they have some really good beer deals as well as hot dogs as well, if you're into some of that. And you see North Carolina as well coming up for these two teams. John Wolyniec, he's got to be happy with what he saw in that first half. He was forced to make 3 changes along the back line, bring in a rookie goalkeeper, as well as changes to the front line. But he got a pretty New York Red Bull 2-like performance.
Absolutely, and again, they've been going down typically in the first halves. They haven't been great to start games, and to get that early goal, I think, flipped that switch for them. And it took Cincinnati quite a while to settle into their game. Again, they had the majority of possession, but didn't really have, I guess, much outcome with it, aside from the final 5 minutes of the first half. But I think Coach Wolyniec should be happy and at least building on something positive from the first half looking at the second.
Andrew Tenari went down with an injury in the middle of the first half, had to get some treatment, but was able to continue. As New York Red Bulls, too, will come out with the exact same team, so no changes made here at halftime for either side as FC Cincinnati brings back the same 11 for them. Evan Newton in goal, Justin Hoyt at right back, Barrett and Lasso, the center back pairing, and Blake Smith at left back, Richie Ryan and Lahoud partnering in central midfield, flanked by Ledesma and Boyne, and Al-Badawi in that 3 attacking position as well, playing at times as a winger and a number 10, and Emery Welshman, the 25-year-old out of Oregon State, getting his 6th start of the season up top. But Heath, we talked about a bit in that first half. It was a very solitary figure throughout those first 45.
You know, that's always the risk you run when you play with a single striker system. If you don't have a Corbin Bone that's more connected to underneath the striker, or your other midfielders, you have 3 midfielders, right? So you have to release one of them to always be playing underneath. You can't just have a late runner like you would have in a 2 midfielder system, that number 8, that late runner in the box. You got to be connected to that forward, because if you're not, he gets isolated. He's not able to stay connected to the game, and then it's hard to find him after a while. And if you're 2 defenders on a back line playing against 1, that's a comfortable position to be in.
Now, Coach Alan Koch has used a diamond 4-4-2 at times over the last few weeks, playing Ledesma up top more as a second forward alongside another forward. It'll be interesting to see how he aligns that midfield and front line here in the second half. New York Red Bulls, too, has been susceptible to good wide players so far this season, but Ledesma and Al-Badawi just haven't gotten the touches there. It'll be a dangerous free kick coming up. We saw one from a similar spot to start the first half. Ledesma will try and serve this one in. Our head official, Izmir Pekmic, says play on. Floated towards the far post, and immediately Kevin Politz goes to ground, and a foul will go against FC Cincinnati.
But I personally prefer Ledesma underneath that striker, because he's most comfortable playing almost like a pseudo number 10. He doesn't mind a guy on his backside. He doesn't mind finding that ball in the pockets. He's comfortable sitting in those tight spaces and staying connected with that top line. And not to say that Corbin Bone can't do the same, but so far that three-man midfield has been very much dealing with the attack of the Red Bulls too, than supporting in the attack of their own team.
Kenny Walker, a huge part of this team, not getting the start here today. Armando Moreno with the meg, but can't complete it. We don't know for Walker if that's because of the loss to Louisville or because of the U.S. Open Cup game coming up, as Newton here is in a foot race and beats White to it. Stroud collides with Smith, and a free kick goes against New York.
Now, just like we saw last week, we're seeing the same this week, where experienced players almost making these fatal errors. And when you have a team that has the energy and that sort of youthful spirit that the Red Bulls 2 have, they will chase everything, and they will capitalize on those mistakes.
Ledesma with the turnover. While we were talking and New York went up the field, Ledesma sat back and didn't drop defensively. But we'll see if maybe Coach Koch takes away some of his defensive responsibilities and leaves him up top a little bit more as that second forward. Great through ball here for Smith. Smith one-on-one now with Akwi, puts in the early ball, and it's blocked by Politz. Al-Badawi losing possession. And Lasso steps forward to win it. Smith trying to chase this one down, and Akwi does enough to get it out for a goal kick. FC Cincinnati started to put on the pressure over the last 5 minutes of the first half, playing their best offensively of the entire half. They are going to try and bring that over here to the second, as Stauffer's clearance is blocked by the sliding Welshman.
Because part of me feels like they approached this game pretty conservatively from the start, because they seems like they didn't have many numbers forward, and whether that was a reaction to how much the Red Bulls 2 were attacking or the numbers they had forward, it seems like this half, even the starting point of Corbin Bone is higher up the pitch. It's right next to, it's playing right underneath their striker. You've got just the willingness, Blake Smith getting into the attack a lot earlier. It seems like they've sort of said, let's open up a little bit, let's be a little bit more vulnerable, throw more numbers into the attack. At least from the start, it looks that way.
And that's exciting news for us, because Red Bulls 2 are always going to let the game open up and get chaotic, and we have seen some really eventful games here over the years. FC Cincinnati, of course, man-to-man has the quality probably to take any team in this league. As Hoyt goes back to the feet of Paddy Barrett, the young Irishman, playing in mid-center back alongside Forrest Lasso. Ledesma with the big switch of the field. Al-Badawi's got Lahoud. Stauffer slips. It's clipped over his head. Al-Badawi with the second ball. It goes over Welshman's head. Takes a touch off De Vera and out for a corner kick.
I think we're starting to see the Cincinnati squad that we've been expecting since the start of the match. And again, those last 5 minutes seem to have brought this team to life and kind of given them that confidence.
It'll be Ledesma here to take. All 11 players back to defend for New York. Ledesma drills it in on the near post. It's headed away by Stauffer. So we take a look at the replay there of that last chance, Heath, but you mentioned numbers forward. Lahoud high up the field creates the dangerous play.
Yeah, and it's a great little flick into the box there. It's unfortunate that Welshman can't get there, but Michael Lahoud spent most of his first half deeper in the midfield, deeper than Richie Ryan, deeper than Corbin Bone, and now you see his willingness to get up, be that supporting man in the attack, and that's what you need from that three-man midfield, is they've got to be able to rotate seamlessly as well as support into the attack.
Yellow card coming out quickly, the first of the game for Emery Welshman, as he forces Akwi to the ground. Welshman getting a half chance just a moment ago. He's starting to find some help, find some teammates.
I think FC Cincinnati are approaching this the right way, in the sense that at a certain point a coach has to say to his center backs, I'm going to need you guys to go one-on-one so we can push our numbers forward and take a little bit more risk. And those players have to be able to react to those types of moments. The Red Bulls, too, are only playing with one striker, so you should be able to start pushing guys up. You're not playing against two where you're stuck in the back line. Push numbers forward, put them under pressure, press them higher up the field, and now we're seeing an attack with much more numbers, much more comfort on the ball, and a greater start than they did in the first half of the game.
Hoyt knocks that one out. Lasso and Barrett, the center back pairing for Coach Alan Koch, who's up on the edge of his touch line, as is Coach Wolenek. Both these coaches reacting to these opening 10 minutes of this second half, which have been much more eventful than the first half was. Moreno gave us that early goal, and then these two teams really settled in and played mainly in that central midfield area. Throw into the feet of White, turned over to Lahoud. Ryan clears it out. See how deep FC Cincinnati was defending there. Turn over to Smith. Al-Badawi. And for the feet of Welshman, is able to get it under control. Ryan slides it across the field for Lahoud. Out wide for Al-Badawi. Clipped over the top for Bone. Bone tries to leave it to run on from Politz, and the offside flag goes up, but you see the creativity there from Corbin Bone.
Absolutely, and then Welshman is occupying that first center back. Bone is making that secondary run behind, which we didn't see much in the first half, and that's forcing Politz, who actually did a good job of holding his line tight, trusting that linesman's going to make that offside call, but you know, again, that's forcing everybody to have to shift over, which is going to open up spaces for other players to get into. But you can see where that creativity is starting to come from and that combination play in the team.
And so often you see, you know, a young center back, they don't struggle physically. If you allow them to be aggressive, attack the ball. It's the communication and decision-making where you put them under pressure as Tenari's shot is blocked. We've seen that issue for Hassan Endam and Jordan Scarlett throughout this season. They haven't really put Akwi and Politz in those situations. Now starting to test them as Welshman floats wide a little bit more.
Yeah, you're testing their decision-making, right? You're saying, there's two players around me, which one's the most dangerous? There's space behind me, there's space to the side of me, where do I need to be? And I think that's how you challenge these players. That's how you develop these players, is them having to be in these high-pressure environments and being tested every few minutes so that they don't have the ability to shut off.
Stauffer floats one in, it's headed on goal. It'll go over the top of Newton's goal. New York Red Bulls, too, wanted a corner kick. FC Cincinnati wanted a goal kick, and they win out in the end of that one. As we see here, New York going with the short corner. Stauffer, a dangerous ball, floated in.
That was a much better whipped-in ball we saw in the first half.
Cincinnati charging up the field now. Bone out wide. FCC starting to find some success. He goes right by Stauffer, looking for a teammate. It's blocked away. And Stauffer now recovers. So we saw in the first half Stauffer and Stroud attacking, and now Stauffer struggling a little bit on the flip side here in the second half to defend.
I think FC Cincinnati is opened up to a lot more free movement. Players are moving in and out of spaces. There's no real conformed positions for anybody in that attacking six at the moment. And as a result, you're seeing the Red Bulls, too, struggle to pick up that movement, struggle to communicate. And like we talked about before with Ndam and center back, same with outside backs, right? This is about communication. It's not about always being able to react because you're athletic enough. Sometimes you have to be able to anticipate where the danger is going to be and be there early.
And you see Coach Wolenek not happy right now, as New York Red Bulls, too, felt like that was a purposeful handball on the slide tackle by either Barrett or Lasso to stop what looked like a breakaway. Our head official, Izmir Pekovic, didn't feel that it was, and so no card shown.
Certainly hit his hand in what would have otherwise been a breakaway, or at least a counterattack with numbers forward and a lot of momentum there, so I can understand why Coach Wolenek is upset.
And his New York team on their heels now, trying to cling on to a one-goal lead as FC Cincinnati come out at halftime with the wind at their backs. Lima floats this one in. Knocked away by Barrett and cleared by Hoyt. Chris Lima taking over that holding midfield position in place of Steven Echeverria. Red Bull Academy player, but actually came back to the team as a draft pick from Georgetown this year. Smith, former first-round draft pick of the Montreal Impact out of New Mexico, has been a threat up the left wing early here in this second half. Badawi pushing it wide. Linking up with Hoyt, trying to find Hoyt once again, and it's blocked away. Good tackle from him, as he thought he won a throw-in for FC Cincinnati, but still stopped the counterattack by Moreno. Nazmi Al-Badawi was one of the top chance creators, Heath, over the last 3 years in NASL. Set the record for single season assists with North Carolina. We haven't seen him really get control of this game at any point and start to create a bunch of chances for the Cincinnati squad.
Yeah, and you said it. I mean, you look at, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about Richie Ryan, Michael Hood, great midfielders in terms of being two-way guys, but then you look at Al-Badawi and Ledesma, two of the better players in NASL over the last few years, few seasons. We haven't really seen them settle in yet, but here in the second half, you're starting to see them inch forward and kind of grow in comfort and confidence.
Al-Badawi here looking comfortable in open space. Finally, Devera steps up to make a defensive block on him. Cincinnati gets it back in possession. Steven Echeverria looks to be the player for New York Red Bulls too. That's getting ready to come on. A true number 6 defensive midfielder, so we'll see if it's just fresh legs in that spot or maybe a bit of a philosophical change for Coach Wolenek. Stroud now coming forward. Ball on the ground from Moreno, and his shot is blocked by Hoyt. Lima with the follow-up and the save by Newton. Armando Moreno looking for his second of the game. An incredible goalkeeping by Justin Hoyt.
Fantastic. Really can't complain about that. But again, that's the first stretch we've seen in probably 20, 30 minutes now from this Red Bulls 2 side to be able to know when to keep possession, inch the ball forward, and if they're going to keep dropping off, take that space and then turns into a big chance there. And that's going to be what they're going to have to rely on as Cincinnati continue to send more and more players forward.
It'll be Tenari to take. He's got Lima close to him for a short option. Tenari floats it to the top of the box for Stauffer. One touchdown, and his shot is deflected. And a penalty kick here for New York. It was Patty Barrett, the center back, with not a lot of time to react. He gets a yellow card. And for the second straight week, New York Red Bulls 2 are going to the penalty spot.
Great little set play there. Fantastic first touch from Stauffer to set up his shot, and then it looks like Barrett lays out with his arms close to his body, but referee decides that that was interrupting what would have otherwise been a shot on frame or a goal-scoring opportunity.
And I think in that situation for Izmir Pekmic, the only thing he could say is it's in an unnatural position because it's hit too close and too quickly for him really to do anything purposefully. So if the hand was in an unnatural position and blocked that opportunity on goal, there's really nothing Patty Barrett could do about it, which is probably why we don't see a red card come out, but you still see the penalty kick.
Well, I think one of the unorthodox movements of him as well is he sort of leads with the head of his body to fall down in front of it instead of leading with his foot to slide and block. And when your arms are involved in that, it starts to feel a little bit more intentional, so to speak.
So it'll be Brian White to step up. And he puts it over the top. Newton didn't even have to make a save as the New York Red Bulls 2 leading goal scorer strikes out on a chance to double his team's lead.
And a guy who's been so confident in front of frame recently and whose bread and butter is to score goals. You expect that to be automatic or at least force the goalkeeper to make a spectacular save. And there, a big learning moment for Brian White, soaring that one over the crossbar and a chance to give them a more comfortable lead in the second half.
So Jimmy McLaughlin and Danny Koenig come off the bench for FC Cincinnati in place of Welshman and Corbin Bone. The two attacking moves made here by Coach Alan Koch, and on the flip side, New York brings in Echeverria for Casares, so he'll play alongside Lima, two defensive-minded central midfielders. But Heath McLaughlin, a guy who's been in USL for a while with FC Cincinnati and Harrisburg City, who you know is going to try and get on the ball, attack defenders, run at them, and Koenig, a big quality finisher in the middle. He sneaks through. Danny Koenig almost steps straight in with a goal, but takes out Stroud. And a lot of action here for Koenig in about 45 seconds.
But that's exactly what you want, right? Your super subs, you want them to come on and be, well, your subs, you want them to come on and be super subs, right? Nobody wants to be called a super sub. They want to be a starter. But come in and get action right away is important.
This one right on the hands of Levine. He punches it away. McLaughlin trying to keep possession. This one floated to the far post by Smith. Great opportunity and put in from no angle. Manu Ledesma, the USL Player of the Week last week, and he puts his team into a draw here at Red Bull Arena.
Now, they talk a lot about that second ball and making sure you push that line up and look around you, know where your players are. And Ledesma there whips that ball in, and not sure if that was direct or off of deflection, but again, gets that ball to the back post by any means necessary.
He's trying to steal credit from every great attacking player in the world. Ledesma, his 5th goal of the season. He now leads FC Cincinnati with those 5 goals. And Heath, what a 2-3 minutes. FC Cincinnati comes out, they start attacking, and you're saying, someone's going to score here. Does Red Bulls 2 get one against the counter and really put them to sleep? FC Cincinnati gives up the PK. It looks like that's what's going to happen. White skies it, and Ledesma comes back and ties it up.
And you know, if you're Brian White right now, you're not feeling great about you're feeling even worse about that missed penalty because you realized how big or how pivotal that moment was, that sometimes a missed penalty brings a team to life. We already saw FC Cincinnati coming back to life. They've been in form the last 5 minutes of the first half, and now consistently here in the second half, and then create an opportunity like that. You're getting the ball to one of the best players in the league in the box, and he does what he does, and that puts that ball in the back of the net, and now it's 1-1 here at Red Bull Arena.
Koenig now running onto this one. De Vera chasing from behind. Danny Koenig's got McLaughlin in the box, and he puts his cross just a little bit too high. McLaughlin runs it down here. The 2 subs, as he said, being super subs in this one. As McLaughlin and Koenig, their 2-man game powering this team right now. Chaos in the box. De Vera gets a little touch to it to push it wide. And now puts it out for a corner kick. Last week for the penalty kick, it was Carlos Rivas who finished it off for New York. A depleted New York Red Bulls 2 team, though. Not a lot of the first option penalty kick takers here with the team. And so it fell to Brian White, who is the PDL Golden Boot winner for New York Red Bulls U23s. Leading goal scorer this year. And he wasn't able to finish. Now FC Cincinnati trying to take their first lead. That header straight onto the hands of Levine. And you can hear the FC Cincinnati supporters. Heath starting to find their voice as their team here, with just over 20 minutes left to play, look to be the one who could be finding the winner in this one.
Yeah, they are definitely the team with the momentum and on the front foot right now.
McLaughlin trying to get by Acqui. Pollitt's there to clean it up in perfect position. Lima screaming for an outlet option. New York Red Bulls too, starting to fall apart here. A dangerous turnover. McLaughlin immediately running upfield. Stauffer comes in late and he'll earn a yellow card. New York's got a sub ready to come on here. That yellow card will go to Lucas Stauffer. So it looks like Jordan Balon's the one who's going to come on. An academy player up on loan with the USL team. Going to make his pro soccer debut. Free kick coming here for Ledesma. We've seen Cincinnati be dangerous off set pieces here, Heath, in the second half. Plenty of height on that far post. Ledesma's already got a goal in this game. Looking for an assist here. He whips it into the far post and it's headed over the top. Forrest Lasso, the clear target for that one, just couldn't get his header down.
Another fantastic ball from Ledesma. So dangerous behind that back line, making defenders uncomfortable when you're running full speed back towards your back line, having to make a play with another whole group of attackers going hard at it. Again, gets past that first man, dips down to the back post. Great ball, and you know, those are the types of balls that can really change a game if you can actually put those on frame. But again, Ledesma, one of the best specialists in the league as well.
So it's not Balon to come in, it's Tom Barlow, striker out of University of Wisconsin, who got his first professional goal last week against Indy. He comes in up top, like for Brian White. And Heath, Coach Wolenek, a former striker, you don't want to take a guy off right after he misses that PK. You want him to have some confidence, but Coach Wolenek, seeing the tide of this game, has to bring in some fresh legs.
Totally, it is.
McLaughlin here with some space. He hits it towards the far post, no one there to get on the end of it.
You know, aside from a little combination play from the Red Bulls 2 in this half, it's been purely dominant from FC Cincinnati, so making changes is natural. It's a hot, humid day, and when your team's not getting it done, you want to make sure that you're bringing in some fresh legs to help support, not only get a goal, but also be in the philosophy or style that they play here, the first line of defense.
Tenari with the layoff. Barlow battling here. 2 slide tackles. And Richie Ryan felt like he got that one clean, but he'll see a yellow card for his reaction.
And the surprising thing on that play is, fair enough that he wants to give a yellow and call the foul there, but there was a potential advantage play, 2-3 players attacking a 2-3 man back line with all of the momentum. You got to at least let them see that out for a few seconds to really see if that advantage comes to life. Instead, he blows his whistle and kills any momentum that they had.
Coach Wolenek below us now talking to Jordan Balon. So he will be coming on in a moment. As he said, New York starting to push out into the attack. 1-1 game here. 7th minute goal by Armando Moreno, answered with a 65th minute strike by Manu Ledesma. Tavares cross, knocked down by Lahoud. He clears it into the feet of Koenig. And you can see Danny Koenig, an experienced international player, doesn't get the start and playing like he wants to prove to Alan Koch he should never leave him on the bench again.
Yeah, look, and I don't know if it's a squad rotation thing because of the amount of matches they have over the next weeks or have already had over the last weeks. But either way, it's always great to have a player come off the bench with the right attitude and energy. And like you said before, within 45 seconds, found his first action of the game and has been busy since then.
Tenari looking for the through ball. Deflected away by Smith and cleared by Lasso. FC Cincinnati turning the screws, looking for that lead here. As Balon will come on now. If you want to get exclusive video content and photography from across the USL, make sure to follow the league's official Instagram account at USL Soccer. As we take a hydration break here, you can also keep up to date with all of the best social media from around the league as Kelsey Steele hosts Off the Post every Friday through the league's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram feeds. These two teams get a little bit of a break here in this 88-degree hot and humid weather. Balon will make the substitution for Lucas Stauffer during that stoppage. Heath Stauffer coming in later on in the season, aggressive going forward, but really struggling in the second half defensively when he was put under pressure.
Yeah, and that's always the balance you're trying to find as a defender is getting forward is one thing, you know, and I know plenty of players that are extremely talented going forward. Everybody wants to play on the team that we see in Champions League semifinals and finals where the outside back gets to start on the half line and they're never defending, but, you know, making sure that you're fundamentally strong in the defense is your main priority. And I think when he's been come under the gun a little bit or a little bit challenged here in the second half, I think he struggled to adjust to having to face, you know, maybe two guys in his position or guys running at him. So again, that's about that team being able to say, hey, we don't really like guys running at us one-on-one, so let's make sure that we keep the ball and we're the one dictating the play over the next 20 minutes.
It's amazing how the positions changed over the last, 20 years? 20 years ago, they were all defenders and you wanted to see if you could get something in the attack. Now everyone's basically a winger, and the question mark is, can they defend at all to actually start and play in that position? Balon, his first touch. That long throw. Jordan Balon committed to go to Dartmouth next year at the New York Red Bulls Academy. Went to preseason with New York Red Bulls too to get that professional experience. We've seen a number of young academy players get USL experience before they head to college. Of course, Kevin O'Toole starting in the USL Cup final before he headed off to school. Kazu Shigenobu, one of the stars of the Red Bull Academy, getting a number of minutes last year before going to Princeton. No Portland Pilots.
No.
Sorry, Heath.
We had a strong contingent for a while there. You know, myself, Casey Keller, Connor Casey.
Guy sitting below us, right? Luis Robles?
Luis Robles.
The Iron Man himself out here watching this game. Obviously, Casey Keller, the biggest of those names.
Steve Cherundolo.
That's a pretty big one.
That's a good one. But it's funny when you're talking about how much the outside back position has changed over the years. You know, when you look right now, you look at DeAndre Yedlin, a guy who is very much an attacking-minded player, has the pace and skills, and then you're constantly trying to convert him and get those defensive skills to develop, which they have done over time. But interestingly enough, the U.S. playing today, Anthony Robinson, a young player, actually seems to have that defensive foundation first and then is building those skills going forward. So it's interesting that there are still some of these guys, but that is also the difference, Gus, is developmentally, now that you have these systems, you can take a guy who's 14, 15, or 13 even and say, you know what, you're best as a left back. We're going to train you that over the next 10 years, as opposed to everybody in the U.S. being some sort of attacking player and then converted at an older age.
This cross comes in, popped up in the air by Politz. A second chance at it. Al-Badawi creates the chance, and Kudig puts it away. FC Cincinnati doesn't quit on the play, battling in the Red Bulls box. And Danny Kunig says to Emmanuel Ledesma, I see you take that team goal-scoring lead, and I'll match you. As they both now have 5.
Cincinnati's had all the momentum in the second half, but 2 botched clearances And then the header that doesn't clear the lines, 3 guys go into it, and it's just a tap in from there. We talked about being strong off the bench, making your impact. But when you're a goal scorer like Koenig, that's a tap in for you. And it's not one you get a lot of times in a season, but when it does fall to your feet, you're going to make sure you make the most of it. And now, a very flat Red Bulls 2 team that hasn't had any momentum in the second half, really any opportunities to get forward, create dangerous opportunities, found themselves 2-1 behind at home.
And a team that's made all 3 of their subs. So Ben Mines won't get an opportunity to come on here as Koenig goes flying in after the play, knocking over Wahab Akwi. Koenig, 11 goals last year in a truncated season after getting traded from Oklahoma City to Cincinnati. Of course, before that, 26 goals in his career in Oklahoma City. And that man, Alan Koch, has pushed all the right buttons. You look at the way this game played out. He got his team to push. The PK's missed, and at that moment, in the stoppage after that PK's missed, is when he subs in McLaughlin and Koenig. And that took this team from being aggressive to getting this lead.
Yeah, and it's allowed other players to sort of settle into their positions as well. Having that striker like Koenig up top that can occupy those center backs, a big physical presence, also a pacey player, and then the McLaughlin who comes on the field and is so pacey, so busy all the time, and literally is more of that go straight at you, run at the defender's type, is going to really bring that spark that you need, and so far it's worked.
The New York Red Bulls, too, have anything else in their tank here on a hot day? Or is FC Cincinnati, their sterling second-half effort, going to be enough to get all 3 points here at Red Bull Arena? As I mentioned, this matchup's tilted heavily in the New York Red Bulls' favor. 3-1 all-time against FC Cincinnati, including 2 years ago, the big 2-1 victory at Nippert Stadium that put New York Red Bulls 2 up on top of the USL standings for the final time as they went on to win the USL regular season and postseason championships that year. Florian Vallot with that crucial goal. Balance cross easily handled by Lasso. Akwi now takes down Koenig. Which teams are hitting peak performance in the USL? Find out every Monday afternoon when the USLsoccer.com power rankings are released to see where your team sits after its most recent result. Heath, going into a huge Open Cup match, this performance here in the second half is the perfect recipe for this FC Cincinnati team to play with confidence in what they hope will be a deep cup run once again and push them to the top of the Eastern Conference in USL.
No, I think it's a learning moment for them as well, because they didn't start the game particularly well, but they stayed compact. Their confidence, I guess, didn't waver, and they slowly worked their way back into this match, put the belief in their key players to lead this team and create big moments, and they've done that. Obviously still 9 minutes plus to play, but definitely a confidence booster looking at that Open Cup game and their, I guess, desire to go on a deep run. They certainly have the depth to do so and manage multiple tournaments.
And they move into first place in USL play with this win. So you can kind of, allocate your resources there even more if you want to. You've already put yourself in a good position as Barlow's touch is too long. De Vera snuck in the Wisconsin forward, but Barlow couldn't handle the through ball.
And that's just good striker movement from Barlow as well. And De Vera, great ball behind that back line. Obviously his first touch lets him down, but it's the exact type of movement you want when you're a single striker and you're trying to swim that line and keep those defenders uncomfortable. It's those darting little runs where you start from a short movement, jog, walk, and then that full sprint to isolate yourself. But you got to turn it into something and make sure that your first touch is strong as well.
Ball over the top, handled by Lasso. Final 8 minutes of regular time here as Danny Koenig is back on the attack. He's got options to his side. He goes wide for Ledesma. Ledesma now with the lead and no rush. And this is where Lahoud and Ryan really come into play. Their ability to hold the ball under pressure. Barlow comes over, makes the defensive play, no foul called. And Tenari here's got pressure on both sides. He gets away from it for a second, and then Hoyt steps in. And Heath, I gotta tell you, I think Danny Koenig was sitting on the bench for 55 minutes. And Wahab Akwi's played very well for his first game, but licking his lips, saying, if I get a chance to get out there, I am gonna knock that guy every chance I get and run at him, because he has been aggressive and he has been physical since he's gotten on the field, almost unnecessarily, but it started to get in Akwi's head.
But that's a style of play, right? And that's what's worked well for him. He's a physical presence, and he uses his body to establish dominance against defenders. And when you're playing against young defenders, that's what you want to do. You want to say, hey, okay, if you want to play against me, I'm going to make your day really, really tough. I'm going to make you chase me every moment. I'm going to probably end up stepping on your toes. And he's built in a way that if he bumps into you, it's probably going to hurt. You're going to feel it. And after the game, you're going to be sore. And that's a skill set. Well, I mean, obviously he's physically probably born that way, but it is a skill set that you use, or a part of your toolkit.
McLaughlin turning away from Echeverria, now trying to get by Akwi. He keeps the ball in and brings it back. FC Cincinnati now with this lead as we approach the 85th minute, and no rush to push the attack, trying to control the ball a little bit and take the air out of this game. New York, we mentioned, a little depleted with their roster here. And in a hot afternoon game, the summer starts to come here in New York. May not have enough juice, Heath, to get themselves back in this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's physically that they've hit a wall or what it is, but it seems like the second half they haven't really come out with that typical energy that we're used to seeing from the Red Bulls too, and perhaps they're a bit outmatched by the overall quality of FC Cincinnati, that they've just sort of started to lean on them, and over time it's sort of just worn them down. It's also a bit of intelligence of understanding when it is hot, how to be clever, how to be smart, how outside backs pick their moments going forward, center backs, midfielders knowing when to make those long runs.
What a luxury here for Alan Koch. To close out a game, he gets to bring in Kenny Walker, his defensive midfield ace, at the number 6 position to see out these final 5 to 8 minutes, depending on stoppage time. As we have mentioned, the depth and the luxury that this FC Cincinnati team is, and you said it, just the overall quality of this squad. So Walker will come on here. And I believe in place of Michael Lahoud. I think our head official had the player going on, player going off numbers swapped as the heat gets to all of us. But for Lahoud, stepping back into the starting role, 85 minutes. Heath, it was probably a good thing we didn't say his name as much in the second half as this team pushed forward, but you saw his quality over the course of the 85 minutes.
Yeah, and you know, he got more connected to that offense in the start of the second half, as did all of the players. They started to become much more on the same page in the way they wanted to approach the second half than in the first half. But again, overall, I think first half, it wasn't a poor first half from them. They just didn't really ever settle into their style of play, because you're seeing what an FC Cincinnati looks like when they're confident in the second half, and it's a completely different team than we saw in the first.
Alan Koch pushing his lines higher, getting all of his substitutions right here in the second half. He has had an eventful 7 days. He's about to have an eventful 9 months or so. Looking for a deep Open Cup run. Trying to make some noise in the playoffs and in the regular season in USL action while preparing a club to move up to Major League Soccer and playing ball boy a little bit there too.
You know, and to go back to our conversation with Wally last week about these players being able to step up and be more consistent and take it to the next level, you're starting to see where those gaps lie between the next level and that consistency, right? It's easy when they're having a great day to say, hey, these young players are incredible, because they are. They all are full of potential, but to be able to do that week in, week out, and then rise to the level around you of some of these experienced players, which they did last week against Indy, but this week clearly different. You're seeing where those developmental gaps are for some of these guys and where they need to be able to take their game to the next level.
Scott Levine makes his first start, beaten twice so far. Is there a Messiah out there on the field for New York Red Bulls too, who could get them a miracle for a point here late on? De Vera pushing forward. A lot of white and orange in front of him, and his ball attempting to the feet of Moreno is intercepted, but you see New York going forward, and 7 or 8 bodies for FC Cincinnati back in their clean lines, ready to defend.
Just sitting in 2 blocks of 4, comfortable, asking for the Red Bulls too to bring more and more players forward to break them down, really probe them, and then exploit them on the counter. It's a pretty standard tactic at this point that FC Cincinnati seems to be doing quite well, especially with the pace that they have from McLaughlin here on the outside, to be able to say, I'm going to cheat forward a little bit, and when I get my moments, go one-on-one. But
what a game it's been. Amando Moreno in the 7th-minute goal. But the key moment may have been Brian White's penalty kick miss in the 63rd minute. Ledesma scoring the equalizer just 2 minutes later as McLaughlin and Koenig came on as subs. And as well as Cincinnati's played in the second half, if White puts that one in, the game might be over.
Totally, and I don't want to lose sight of that, because there was a short period there in the second half where the Red Bulls too were solid and had a few combination plays.
Koenig once again showing his physicality. This time it goes for a foul.
And not that you want to put any match on one player, but it certainly would have changed the dynamic of this game and played definitely into the Red Bulls' favor of forcing Cincinnati to throw more players forward or take more chances, which the Red Bulls invite, trying to win those turnovers and then counterattack efficiently. But now they found themselves down 2-1, looking for a single moment to sort of lift them back into this.
We hit the end of regular time as we approach stoppage time. Still no number on the clock here for our 4th official. This shot gets deflected out by a teammate of Tenari. Excuse me, a minimum of 4 minutes of stoppage time will be added. So New York, just a few more moments. See Tenari frustrated a little bit after that shot attempt. Heath, from what you've watched, let's start with New York. Who do you walk away from and say, today was a good day for you, even if it ends up being in a loss?
I think Levine has been good. I think looking at that first goal, I would like to take a few more looks at it to see if there was something he could have done. Second goal was a tap-in. You know, and I look at the missed clearance on the second goal is tough, but I think Akwi's been okay in that battle, but he is being tested here in the second half. I think overall as a group was an okay performance, or it has been an okay performance from the Red Bulls too. Nobody really stood out for me. I think Amando Moreno was busy in the first half, but again, I feel like the attack has been a little bit disconnected and has had trouble really breaking down any of the defensive lines in the second half. So I think there's a lot of learnings to take from this game. Casares was solid in the first half, but thought that he was a little bit sloppy in a few of his passes as well.
And it looked like Coach Wolenek agreed with you on that one. On the flip side, for FC Cincinnati, Coach Alan Koch plays his hand perfectly. He knew he had bullets in the chamber. A hot day. He slow plays that first half. His team settles in. They had a few half chances that they gave up that New York wasn't able to capitalize on. It's only a 1-goal deficit. And then he pulls out his wild cards in McLaughlin and Koenig off the bench. Kenny Walker coming in late now to try and seal this one off. A really good afternoon, you have to say, for FC Cincinnati.
And that's one of the strengths of having that much experience on the field, right? You go down one, you don't go into a panic. Those players have been in this position plenty of times, being down a goal or level.
Stroud now pushing forward, gets a fortunate deflection. His cross is blocked, and now McLaughlin has a chance to clear.
You know, when you have that much experience, they don't get shook. They just continue to do what they do. They have they use the halftime to their advantage.
Tavares cross knocked away by Barrett.
To take a look at things and then make improvements and know that you have enough players that have been in those positions before to come on and help the team improve for the second half.
Levine here. The final minute of the minimum of 4 minutes of stoppage time. No reason to expect much more. Stroud floats this one too hard, and it goes over the end line. Stroud dangerous in the first half. Moreno goal dangerous in the first half. We just haven't said either of those players' names here in the second.
And again, we saw this, you know, in the first half from FC Cincinnati having a striker what felt like it was on an island, an attack that was a little bit disconnected, playing in almost two teams of 5 or 6 and 4. And in this half, we're seeing that from the Red Bulls too. Not really on the same page aside from a few moments going forward. Not all that dynamic, whether that's the heat, fatigue, or just players not being in the same rhythm, having not played with each other a lot. Just look disconnected for large portions of these last 45 minutes.
Well, the FC Cincinnati supporters that have made it out to Red Bull Arena enjoying this one as their team marches back in the second half after trailing 1-0 and getting the 2-1 lead through the goals by Manu Ledesma and Daniel Koenig. A great afternoon for FC Cincinnati. Continue what has been a special week. We'll be back in just a moment with your post-game analysis and full match highlights here on ESPN+.
With MSG Go, the game goes where you go. So you can watch live Red Bulls games anywhere you want. It's free and easy because if you get MSG, you get MSG Go. Watch your favorite team wherever you are with MSG Go, presented by Lexus. Download it for free where you get your apps.
One of the nation's leading heart programs. A shared sense of compassion, innovation, and expertise. Perfectly orchestrated so your world never misses a beat. Hackensack Meridian Health. Life years ahead.
FC Cincinnati, a great afternoon in the tri-state area as their supporters made their way out and got to see a special comeback win from their team in orange and blue. David Goss and Heath Pierce with you on ESPN+. Let's take a look at the highlights, Heath, as New York got off to a perfect early start.
Great start, good dynamic movement there. Great finish from Moreno to find that open part of the goal on the near post. Put them up 1-0.
New York had a few chances in the first half to make it 2. This one of the best of them. Tavares skies it over the top.
Great one-on-one abilities there to get behind Blake Smith, get behind that back line and find that open man, cutting it back to the penalty spot. And then
in the second half, FC Cincinnati started to pour it on.
Midfield 3 started to attack, be those late runners, those diagonal runs, changed everything. Saw a brief moment there, the Red Bulls 2 getting back into the attack, setting them up for this one.
A handball called. whether or not you think it was right. Brian White steps to the spot to try and make it 2-0 and skies it over. And then just 3 minutes later, Jimmy McLaughlin and Danny Koenig come in off the bench, and Ledesma with this shot maybe takes a slight deflection, but is able to tie it up.
Either way, it's a great finish there. And then here, again, 2 botched clearances, a 3rd botched clearance, plenty of opportunities to get in there and tackle. They make the tackle. It falls down to Koenig's feet. He buries it on a tap in.
So Danny Koenig, 5 goals on the season. Manu Ledesma as well. New York outshoots this FC Cincinnati team, but FC Cincinnati more possession, more dangerous on goal. It was a first half for New York, a second half for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's made their count.
Absolutely. Cincinnati were very good in the second half. A completely different team, a completely different confidence, a completely different approach, and that paid off in not only 2 goals, but a pretty dominant second half.
FC Cincinnati move to first in the USL Eastern Conference as they get a 2-1 win. Their first road win against New York Red Bulls 2 in history. Red Bulls 2 will be back next week at Montclair State University Soccer Park. So make sure to get out to that one in FC Cincinnati US Open Cup action hosting Minnesota. Thanks so much for watching. For myself, David Goss, Heath Pierce, our producer, Rich Kaufman, and everyone else involved, have a great weekend.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League may not be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the express written consent of the United Soccer League.